Hey guys, in episode 327 of You Are Not the Narcissist, I want to talk about, being kind of facetious here, but I want to talk about codependent. Nah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about CPTSD versus narcissism. And in that framing of why you're not the narcissist, i.e., how trauma, having a system where your, what is it, neurotransmitters, but um, your what the heck is it called? Basically, your like how your body operates. Well, I can't think of the word, but that kind of like agitated, kind of like I need needs met, and you kind of do what you need to get your needs met, kind of thing. It's why I can't think of the word, but nervous system, the way your nervous system is. So your nervous system, and with CPTSD, you're gonna have like a kind of a nervous system where you have hypervigilance and like these certain attributes that can correlate. Again, this is again another just reassurance video to those of us that are newly leaving a relationship, have recently suffered from narcissistic abuse, and I'm here just to help reassure you, to the degree that that individual had gaslit you and made you believe, because that is a trait of narcissism, to make you believe that it's your fault. I mean, that is essentially anyone who has no sense of self, has no, that's toxicity at the end of the day. You can break it down to, the way I look at it, is like a root, like the very lowest end of these toxic traits, cluster B, is lack of empathy, and with that usually manifests in lack of looking at oneself, which usually ends up being not taking accountability for their mistakes, which usually ends up being gaslighting, making you think it's your fault. So here I am reassuring you that it's not your fault. And when you have, even like, I was thinking about lying recently, and I was in therapy, and I always thought, like, I was kind of a contrarian and somebody who kind of like would manipulate, but it would be to get their needs met and to get them to pay attention to me. So I would, very recently I was thinking about being, I'm like, I've been a narcissist this whole time, this and that, and man, like, there's a big difference. Well, actually, there's a big difference and yet a small difference, right? You can pretty much have every trait of a narcissist. This is just, I'm spitballing again. I'm not a professional, but this is my take on it. Is you can have every trait of a narcissist. If you have empathy, you're not a narcissist. That's the way I look at it. It's that simple. So, having said that, even if you're like a liar, you're a manipulator, you're a, whatever, and it's to get your needs met, and you don't, I like backtracking right here, because when I say liar, manipulator, like that doesn't sound good. But like, for example, somebody saying, I, and to the extent that you have CPTSD and you have this you have your, I can't think of the word again. I just said it. Your neurosystem, your whatever, your system. What the heck is wrong with me? I can't think of the word. I keep forgetting the word. But to the degree that you have that like trauma and you have that like heightened, damn it. Comment below what the word is to troll me, because I can't. I just thought of it and said it, and now I can't think of it again. Goddamn. I always want to say neurosystem, neurotransmitters, but it's your how your system works. And to the degree that you have that trauma and that like heightened hypervigilance and all that stuff, and that word I can't think of in your with your system, it can manifest in certain ways, right? Where you know, can't. I mean, you'll see it in some of my videos. I can't keep a lot I can't keep on track a lot. I tend to walk over my words. There's a lot of like hypervigilance in that, getting cut off, being manipulated, being told like there's a lot of symptoms of that. And so that can manifest into somebody who will lie in a way that's like exaggerating to get more needs met. It's like, and that's annoying or whatever. And it can come off very obvious to somebody. Like in hindsight, I think about a lot of stuff in my life. I would act like that, like nobody, I'm totally in a fantasy world of like acting like I'm a celebrity, or I'm acting like I'm like I did something that being grandiose, and it's like I really struggle to call that like NPD, like deep narcissism, because, well, obviously I've healed, and if it's only to get your needs met, um, and it doesn't take away the empathy of anyone else, I think that's more codependency and CPTSD, right? Like, but for the sake of this video, we're talking about CPTSD, the way that word I can't think of affects your body and how you operate in the world, and how that can look like narcissism, especially if you're doing the work, you're watching videos like these. You may have, not. I would argue that everyone has had. I'd be willing to bet that everybody who has been narcissistic, has had a narcissist in their life at one point, has thought that they were the problem. Or else that person, I don't think really, at least that person didn't have their, the hooks in you long enough to get you to get to that point if they were actually, in fact, a narcissist. So, yeah, that's the point of this video. Kind of a reassurance video, just to help those struggling, and to, just, I tend to make these videos when I think of something and I want to split it out to the world. So it's, if you follow my channel, it's one part video diary, one part, I like to think, my healing journey is, like with anything, teaching people helps me learn. So a teacher can learn more by, talking, and that's why I appreciate the comments, guys. So we can keep a dialogue, and I think that's kind of where I want to keep this channel, where I'm just kind of speaking from the heart, 100%, 100%. Why can't I say that? 100% authentic. Narcissistic abuse also apparently results in not being able to say percent. It's hard to say the word percent when you've been abused by someone. So you have to go percentage, and you have to practice that word, because for some reason they even they've stricken that word from your vocabulary. That's how abused you were. No, it's called projection. Anyway, so that's the video for today, ladies and gentlemen. Hang in there. Narcissistic abuse is a lot of fun, and you're going to grow, and you're going to be galvanized. So just remember that. And yeah, it's not your fault, and you were targeted, and it's time to heal. That's the sickness. They don't tell you who they are. They will dip out and make you think it's your fault and keep you confused and hope you probably, that way they never have to be outed. That is evil. That is really, really evil. That's when I think narcissism, and that, I like to think, because so many disorders are hard, world is always changing, people are always changing, and so, I really, again, like to think of these, especially personality disorders, as like a way to make sense of something, instead of like, even pigeonholing a narcissist is like, although I would argue the pigeonholing, I think, is a groundwork, like pigeonhole them at the groundwork of narcissism, and you can go up from there. If you really know their narcissism, don't just leave it there. It can go like this, but I would argue if they're a true narcissist, it's never going there, meaning they're never going to heal, they're never going to change. Like true narcissism, that person is dead. They died. It's sad. They, in childhood, the child died, and what's left is a shell. And so with that shell, you can go from levels of sadistic, and that's where I think it gets tricky, and that's where talk about terms like narcissistic psychopaths. They are narcissists until they really, you get to them, and then they can really take things as far as they can possibly go. They don't care. So I think that's more psychopathic than narcissistic at that point, when someone goes past a certain point. Anyway, so CPTSD, is just a again, the freaking word, troll me in the comments, but it's a trauma response. It's a there's only one word to describe it, but the way your God, tip of my tongue again. The way your body acts, the way your mind and body act, everything together, you know, um, versus narcissism being a personality disorder. Although they have some certain similarities, because I would argue that someone with narcissism also has CPTSD. It's just like psychopathy. I said it before, I'll say it again. And it's somewhat jovial, somewhat, not serious, but um, I do believe it that it's like tequila and mezcal. Every psychopath is a narcissist, but not every narcissist is a psychopath. I believe it. It's not just that simple, but it helps somebody dealing with a psychopath understand that that person also has the selfishness and they have all the traits of a narcissist. They're capable of all the traits of a narcissist, although the deadpan, the coldness, the dull affect is going to be like this. Yeah, it's dull affect versus maybe overexpressive, charming with a narcissist. So, but I'm just a guy on the internet. So, hope you guys have a good time on your healing journey. Just kidding. It's not gonna be a good time. It's a bad time. But we're in this together, guys. Heal that stuff so you can change the family dynamic and do it for you, and give them none of the credit. They don't deserve any of it. It's all you. You're doing it for you. And hang in there, guys. Hope you enjoyed the sideways video. I had a sideways video. I even forgot to turn on the freaking light. So ADHD I am. Look at this. It looks way better now. All right, well, too late. Have a good one.